They poured the gasoline like it was a joke. The plastic jug sloshed in the youngest boy's shaking hands as he staggered down the concrete embankment beneath the overpass. Cold autumn wind howled through the support pillars, carrying the smell of exhaust, wet asphalt, and now fuel. The old man didn't move at first. To them, he was just a lump of dirty blankets and worn denim, another piece of trash the town pretended not to see. Then he coughed, a rough, broken sound, and one crusted eyelid cracked open. Wait. His voice came out dry, sandpaper over rusted metal. What are you doing? The boys snickered. He was a homeless veteran. Everyone knew that. The crazy one who flinched at loud bangs, who talked to people that weren't there, who sometimes woke in the night screaming names no one recognized. He slept under the overpass because the shelter was too loud, too bright, too full of ghosts. He wasn't supposed to matter. Councilman Ward said you liked to watch. The tallest boy smirked, kicking at the man's boot. Said you saw something you weren't supposed to. We're just helping him out. The veteran's eyes focused slowly, pupils swimming with fear and memory. Rainwater had soaked through his thin sleeping bag. His hands, scarred, shaking, came up defensively. I didn't tell anyone, he rasped. I swear, kid, I didn't say a word. You don't have to. The cap twisted off with a cheap plastic squeak. The youngest boy grimaced as gasoline splashed onto the veteran's jacket, turning faded fabric dark and shiny. The fuel bled into his beard, his hair, the blankets beneath him. He twisted, trying to escape, but his legs cramped, years of malnutrition and cold catching up all at once. Please, he whispered, and it sounded like the same word he'd said on another night, in another country, over another man's body. Please, just don't. The leader, Tyler, pulled a lighter from his pocket. The tiny metal hinge snapped with an easy, practiced flick. You shouldn't have watched, old man, he said. He said, make it look like you did it to yourself. You get it? Nobody's gonna care anyway. The veteran's eyes filled with tears, rage and terror tangled together. I bled for this country, he choked. I watched my friends die for it. Don't you dare. Tyler dropped the flame. Gasoline doesn't creep. It explodes. Fire whooshed to life, racing across the soaked fabric, clawing its way up the veteran's chest and arms. His scream tore through the underpass, echoing off concrete and metal in a sound that didn't sound human at all. The boys stumbled back, frozen, their bravado ripped away in an instant. Holy, we gotta go, man. This isn't what he meant. The old man rolled, clawing at his coat, but the flames clung hungrily. Memories hit him in jagged flashes. Burning villages, flares in the desert night, the smell of cordite and blood. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Afghanistan. Home. Hell. It all felt the same. Help! He screamed, voice shredding. Somebody! The sirens weren't close. Nobody walked this part of the highway after dark. There was only the sound of cars far overhead, the roar of fire, the panicked breathing of boys who just realized that fun could look a lot like murder. Then another sound cut through the chaos. A growl. It rolled out of the darkness like distant thunder. Low, steady, controlled. Not the frantic bark of some backyard mutt, but the deep-chested warning of a predator that knew exactly what it was capable of. The boys whipped around. He stepped into the firelight one paw at a time, massive frame outlined in flickering orange. Fur dark as wet stone, eyes bright and locked, every muscle coiled like a loaded spring. The dog didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He simply stared, head lowered, lips pulled back, just enough to show what waited underneath. Titan. What the hell? One of the boys stammered. Whose dog is that? Footsteps followed, measured, heavy, unhurried. A man emerged from the shadows beneath the bridge, hood up against the cold, stubble shadowing a hard jawline, eyes scanning the scene in a single, razor-sharp sweep. The burning veteran, the gasoline jug, the boys frozen mid-flight. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet. Quiet in the way a drawn bowstring is quiet. Titan, secure. The K9 moved instantly, angling sideways to plant his body between the boys and the fallen man, cutting off their escape without taking his eyes off them. The growl deepened, a vibration you could feel more than hear. The man shrugged off his jacket and threw himself to the veteran's side. Hey, stay with me, brother, he said, smothering the flames with brutal efficiency. Breathe, that's it. I've got you. You're not dying under a bridge tonight, you hear me? The veteran coughed, lungs burning, eyes streaming from heat and smoke. For a second, through the blur, the stranger's face shifted, cheeks younger, helmet on, desert sky behind him. A memory cut through the pain. Reid, he croaked. The man's jaw clenched. Yeah, Jack, he said softly. It's me. The boys finally broke, turning to run. Bad move, Reid said without looking up. Titan, Mark. The world narrowed to teeth and terror. Titan launched just enough. No wasted motion, no wild fury. He snapped at the air inches from the leader's thigh, hurting them back, forcing them to trip over their own fear. One slipped in the spilled gasoline and went down hard, scrambling backwards on his hands. Don't let them go. The new voice was raw, furious. The veteran gripped Reid's arm with surprising strength. They're his kids, Ward's kids. He sent them. He killed Martinez. He's gonna kill the others. Reid's eyes went cold. Councilman Ward. Murder. Witness. Fire. Pieces slid into place with the inevitability of a loaded magazine-racking home. Above them, a semi-truck thundered over the bridge, shaking loose a rain of dust and pebbles. The fire died under Reid's jacket, leaving the veteran smoking, trembling, but alive. Reid stood slowly, one hand resting on Titan's harness. The boys stared up at him, pale and shaking, every bit of their fake toughness stripped away. You're going to tell me everything Councilman Ward told you, Reid said quietly. Every word, every name, every place. He leaned in just enough for them to see exactly what lived behind his eyes. Because this, he jerked a thumb toward the still smoking man on the ground. This isn't just assault. This is attempted murder of a U.S. veteran, and you did it on orders. Titan's growl rose again, a steady drumbeat of promised violence. Which means, Reid finished, someone in this town is running a kill program, and you idiots just lit the fuse. Far in the distance, sirens finally began to wail. By the time they arrived, one homeless veteran would be clinging to life. 3 terrified teenagers would be whimpering confessions. And somewhere across town, a councilman who thought he was untouchable would feel, for the first time in his life, the cold prickling at the back of his neck that meant someone was coming for him. Someone with a K9 named Titan. 12 hours earlier, the first cold rain of October slid down the mountains like a gray curtain, blurring the jagged pines and the weather-beaten billboards along Highway 17. Harbor's End, Colorado, didn't look like much from the road. A faded green sign announced the population. 3,482 souls, give or take whoever had died or left that year. Rusted pickup trucks lined Main Street in front of the diner and the hardware store. An old movie theater with a single screen advertised last month's blockbuster in peeling letters. Beyond the town, dense forest rose up into fog-slicked slopes, and somewhere out there, a river cut through the rock and whispered its way toward a lake tourists saw in brochures, but rarely bothered to find. To most drivers, Harbor's End was a blur, a gasp of neon and brick in their headlights before they pressed the gas and moved on. To Jack Mercer, it was a place he couldn't leave. He shuffled through the drizzle along the edge of the parking lot behind the diner, his worn boots leaving no footprints on the already soaked ground. The army surplus jacket hanging from his shoulders had once been olive green. Now it was the color of dirty dishwater, stiff from years of rain, sweat, and sleeping rolled around him like a cocoon. His hands shook as he held the styrofoam cup, not from the cold, but from the aftershocks of dreams he couldn't fully remember. Coffee sloshed onto his fingers. He barely flinched. "Refill, Jack." Chloe, the young waitress from the Mountain View diner, pushed open the back door with her hip. Warmth and the smell of bacon rolled out behind her. She held a fresh pot in one hand, a cigarette she hadn't lit yet in the other. Jack blinked, brought back from wherever his mind had been drifting. Didn't finish this one yet," he muttered, lifting the cup an inch. She stepped closer anyway, topping him off. "On the house. Boss says I'm not allowed to encourage loiterers," she said, air quoting with the hand holding her cigarette. "But I don't see a loiterer. I see my best customer." Jack tried to smile. One corner of his mouth cooperated. "You're gonna get in trouble," he warned. "Already am," she shrugged. "Might as well be for something that matters." She studied him for a second, eyes soft. The dark circles under his own, the way he flinched every time a car backfired on Main Street, the way he slept beneath the overpass instead of in the shelter 2 blocks away. It all painted a picture she'd learned not to stare at for too long. There was too much of it in Harbor's End. "You eat anything today?" she asked. He hesitated. Got a sandwich earlier," he said. "I'm fine," which meant no. Chloe sighed. "Stay put. If my manager asks, I didn't see you." She disappeared back inside. Jack wrapped his hands tighter around the cup, leeching what little warmth he could. Rain spotted his beard, tracing lines through grime and old scars. He had once been Staff Sergeant Jack Mercer. 4 tours, dozens of operations, a chest full of ribbons he'd lost somewhere between the VA office and the bottom of a bottle. Now he was that homeless vet under the bridge. He tilted his head, listening. The rain masked a lot of sounds, but he could still hear the town breathing. The low rumble of trucks, the clink of dishes, the distant train horn. Somewhere, a police siren blipped once, then cut off quickly, like it had changed its mind. Ever since last week, he'd heard something else too. Footsteps, following, watching. He told himself it was the PTSD. The docs had warned him about hypervigilance, about seeing ghosts in every shadow. It was easier to blame his broken brain than admit the possibility that he was right. Because if he was right, the memory flickered again. Headlights in the rain. A car parked where it shouldn't have been, down by the river. Men dragging something heavy, wrapped in plastic. The snap of a gunshot muffled by fog. A voice he recognized, laughing softly and saying, "Witnesses are bad for business." Jack squeezed his eyes shut. The styrofoam cracked in his grip, hot coffee bleeding onto his fingers. He barely felt it. "You didn't see anything," he told himself under his breath. "You stay out of it. This town chewed you up once already. You don't owe it anything." The wind answered, rattling a loose sheet of metal on the dumpster behind him. The door opened again. Chloe thrust a paper bag toward him. "Here," she said, "chicken fried steak sandwich and fries. And don't even think about arguing. I'll sick the health inspector on you." He took it automatically. "Thanks." She glanced at the gray sky. "Storm's coming in heavier tonight. You sure you don't want to ride to the shelter? It's warmer indoors, you know." He shook his head quickly. Too quickly. "Can't," he muttered. Too many walls." She didn't push. You learned not to push people like Jack. You just kept showing up with coffee and food and small talk, hoping it was enough to keep them tethered to something human. "Okay," she said softly. "Just stay out from under the freeway when it really comes down, all right? That place floods." Jack opened his mouth to answer, but movement at the end of the alley caught his eye. A black sedan he'd seen too many times this week rolled slowly past, windows tinted just a shade darker than legal. It paused at the corner. The brake lights glowed red through the mist. Chloe didn't notice. Jack did. Every muscle in his body went tight. Councilman Ward's car. The man who smiled on TV about revitalizing Harbor's End, about giving our youth purpose, about new programs and opportunities. The same man whose voice Jack had heard by the river. Laughing. He watched the sedan vanish around the bend, a knot tightening in his gut. Chloe frowned. "You okay, Jack?" He forced his shoulders to relax. "Yeah," he lied. "Just thinking." thinking about how, in a town this small, the wrong thing seen by the wrong eyes could get a forgotten man hurt. Or worse, he took a bite of the sandwich. The grease and gravy and salt hit his tongue, grounding him in the present, in the rain, in the small kindness of a waitress who refused to stop seeing him. Humanity is measured by how we treat the forgotten. He tried not to think about how the people in black sedans measured anything at all. Jack lingered behind the diner long after Chloe disappeared inside. The rain had softened to a mist, drifting through the alley like ghost breath. He pulled his jacket tighter, but the cold wasn't what made him shiver. That sedan, he'd seen it near the mill last Wednesday. He'd seen it by the river 2 nights ago. He'd seen it turn onto Sycamore Street the morning after Martinez disappeared. A car like that didn't belong in Harbor's End. Not without a reason. Jack forced the thought away and carried the sandwich bag across the street toward the underpass. Cars hissed along the wet road above him, headlights slashing through the fog before vanishing again into the mountain curves. The space under the bridge was his home. At least, whatever counted as home these days. A scavenged mattress sat against the far pillar. A few blankets were piled beside it, plus a milk crate that held everything he owned. A worn Bible, 2 sets of clothes, a folding knife with Mercer etched on it, and a photo of 3 young men in uniform, all smiling, all alive, all gone now. He crouched beside the mattress, allowed himself 2 bites of the sandwich, then placed the rest into a plastic container. He'd learned to ration, learned it the hard way, learned that hunger only hurt for the first hour. Thunder rumbled across the mountains. The air felt heavy, pressing down on the world. He lay back against the pillar, closed his eyes, and there it was again. Footsteps, not the loud, careless steps of joggers or kids. These were slow, measured, stopping each time the wind gusted like someone listening for something. Jack sat up. His pulse thudded, a heavy echo inside his skull. The memory, rain, fog, the crack of a muffled gunshot, men dragging a body toward the water, flashed again. He pressed his hands against his temples. Not real, he whispered. Not real, just ghosts. But the footsteps didn't go away. They retreated, purposeful, silent, watching him or scouting. He didn't know anymore. The storm came in fast, sweeping over the valley like a curtain of silver. Within minutes, rain hammered the concrete overhead, splashing into puddles that spread across the ground beneath him. Cold seeped into his bones. Jack stood pacing. That shelter, maybe, he muttered. But the thought of 4 walls made his breath seize. Too tight, too confining, too many memories clawing through the dark. He left the mattress and walked out to the edge of the highway, where the rain fell freely, soaking his hair and plastering his jacket to his skin. He didn't care. The cold kept the noise away. For a time, until he heard wheels, slow, rolling deliberately. The black sedan again. It passed under the next streetlight. Its brake lights flickered once, and though the windows were tinted, Jack felt eyes on him, watching, calculating. His throat tightened. He turned away quickly, heading back beneath the overpass, footsteps splashing through puddles. His heart hammered in a staccato rhythm he couldn't control. This wasn't paranoia. Something was wrong. Something connected to that night by the river. Something linked to Martinez and to Councilman Ward. Jack curled under the concrete beam and wrapped his blanket around his shoulders. But sleep wouldn't come. Thunder cracked overhead, vibrating through the pillar behind him like artillery echoing off canyon walls. His breath quickened. His fingers trembled. His vision tunneled. "Mercer, get down!" A blast. Screaming. Sand. Blood. He pressed his palms to his eyes, trying to block the memories. It didn't work. Nothing worked. The storm eased near dawn, leaving the world washed in pale gray. Jack rose stiffly, brushing mud from his jacket, and walked toward town before the morning rush began. The diner's parking lot glistened with rainwater. The neon "open" sign buzzed softly behind the fogged glass. He didn't go inside. He never did. He sat on the curb across the street, waiting for the sun to burn off the mist. waiting for the voices in his head to quiet, waiting for something, anything, to feel normal. Instead, he saw the black sedan parked at the end of the block again. This time, it wasn't moving. This time, the engine was off. This time, he was sure someone inside was watching him. Why? He didn't know, but every instinct he'd ever learned screamed at him. Danger. He stood, backing toward the alley, eyes locked on the sedan. A figure shifted behind the tinted glass. Jack's breath caught. Then the driver's door opened. He froze. A man stepped out, umbrella unfurling with a soft click. Councilman Ward, dressed in a tailored navy coat and polished shoes that didn't belong in a town full of mud and gravel. He adjusted his tie, scanned the street with the cold detachment of someone surveying property rather than people. Then he saw Jack. Ward's expression didn't change, but he nodded once to someone still in the car and got back in. The sedan rolled away, tires whispering over wet pavement. Jack felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. He knew that nod. He'd seen it from officers, from commanders, from men who chose who lived and who didn't. A nod like that meant, handle it. Jack didn't know it yet, but that nod would lead to fire and pain and screams under a bridge, and it would bring someone back into his life, someone he never expected to see again. A man named Reid and a war dog named Titan. Councilman Richard Ward liked to start his mornings early, not because he enjoyed the quiet, not because he valued discipline, and certainly not because Harbor's End inspired some quaint sense of civic duty in him. He woke early because powerful men always did, and he considered himself very powerful. His house sat on a hill overlooking the entire town, a modern glass and stone mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a wealthy suburb and dropped into rural Colorado by mistake. Every angle of the building screamed money. Old money? No, but money nonetheless. Ward believed strongly in two things: appearances and control. If you controlled what people saw, you controlled what they believed. He stood before the floor-to-ceiling window in his bedroom, sipping imported espresso, watching fog lift from the valley. The mountains beyond the river were wrapped in cloud like sleeping giants. He smiled. Beautiful, he whispered to no one. A shame only a few people truly appreciate it. Behind him, his phone buzzed. He didn't look. He already knew the message was from his assistant. Status: the vet saw too much. Youth team will handle it. Ward chuckled. They weren't a youth team. They were the troubled teenagers the town trusted him to rehabilitate. Kids from broken homes, petty delinquents he molded into useful shadows. The kind of boys desperate for approval, direction, and structure. He gave them all three, but what he really gave them was a leash, and he was the hand that held it. Ward crossed the room and picked up the framed certificate on the dresser. Harbor's End Youth Revitalization Program, founded by Councilman Richard Ward. A perfect cover, a perfect facade, because no one questioned the benevolent mentor who saved troubled boys from the streets. No one questioned the man who poured money into parks, coaching, after-school tutoring, and community policing partnerships. They had no idea that behind all that good press was a murder-for-hire pipeline disguised as opportunities for at-risk youth. Ward didn't dirty his hands, not directly. He didn't need to. He had boys who owed him everything, and one of those boys had reported something last week, a homeless man watching from the tree line while Ward's men disposed of a problem. Ward remembered the report clearly. He was just a vet, sir. Crazy. He was shaking, muttering. Probably didn't even understand what he saw. Ward's smile never broke. They always understand. He had ordered surveillance, then elimination, but veterans were tough to kill. They clung to life like stubborn stains. Ward set the frame down gently. "Let's hope the kids followed instructions," he murmured. "I'd hate to waste more resources." Down in town, Harbor's End Police Station hummed with the artificial calm of a building maintained more for appearances than function. Sheriff Tom Kelso leaned back in his chair, boots up on his desk, staring at the security feed on his monitor. Rain streaked down the camera lens, distorting Main Street into a blur of neon and puddles. He scratched his jaw. The stubble there was new. He hadn't bothered shaving. There were more important things to do than uphold dress standards, especially when half your job was making sure certain reports vanished before anyone important read them. The door to his office eased open. Councilman Ward stepped in, rain still drying on his coat. "Tom," Ward greeted smoothly. "Richard," Kelso replied, lowering his boots and sitting up straighter. "Didn't expect you this early." Ward smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Kelso wish he hadn't spoken. That smile always meant trouble. "Did you hear anything?" Ward asked. "About our guest under the bridge?" Kelso's eyes flickered. "No, but I heard from the boys." Ward raised an eyebrow. "And?" Kelso hesitated. "They said it got messy." Ward frowned slightly, as though inconvenienced by a late package delivery. "They're children," he said calmly. "Messy is what they do." "Did they take care of the problem or not?" Kelso swallowed. "They think so," said the old man went up like a torch. Ward nodded, satisfied. Kelso shifted in his chair. "You know," he said carefully, "if this gets out, it won't. But if it does kill him..." "Tom," Ward said gently, as though speaking to a child, "everyone in this town has ignored that man for years. Half of them don't even know his name. If he dies, people will assume it was exposure or a bottle that finally got him. Tragic. Unavoidable." Ward let the words sink in. "And if he lives..." Ward didn't blink. "Then you'll handle it." Kelso felt sweat prick the back of his neck. There were lines he hadn't meant to cross when he took this job. Things he told himself he'd never do. But each year, under Ward's influence, chipped another piece off the man he once was. "All right," Kelso muttered. "I'll keep an ear out." Ward smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "Good man." Sheriff Kelso hated that phrase. He hated that it made him feel like anything but. Ward turned toward the door. "Oh, and Tom?" "Yeah? If anyone asks about activity near the river last week..." Kelso completed the sentence automatically. The cameras were down, weather damage, no footage available. Ward smiled. "Exactly." He stepped out, closing the door behind him. Kelso let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Across town, in a quiet modular classroom behind Harbor's End Middle School, one boy sat alone at a desk. Tyler Ward, Councilman Ward's son, stared at his trembling hands. The gasoline still clung to his skin, in his nails, in the fabric of his sweatshirt. No amount of scrubbing removed the smell. Jack's screams echoed in his ears. Blood pounded in his skull. He squeezed his eyes shut. He hadn't wanted to do it. God, he hadn't wanted any of it. But when your father was the most powerful man in town, you didn't say no. The door creaked open. Tyler flinched violently. His father stepped inside. "Are you all right?" Ward asked smoothly. Tyler stammered. "Dad, I think he wasn't just some guy. Ward placed both hands on the desk and leaned in close. "Look at me." Tyler looked. "You did what you had to do," Ward murmured. "For family, for this town, for your future." Tyler swallowed. "But what if he lives?" Ward smiled thinly. "He won't." Tyler shifted. "And if someone saw us?" Ward's smile widened. "Then we'll take care of them too." Tyler felt cold seep into his bones. Ward straightened his jacket. "Now get something to eat, and keep your mouth shut. Everything is under control." Tyler nodded, but his stomach twisted. His father walked away. Tyler stared down at his hands. He wasn't so sure. Not anymore. Because someone had stepped out of the shadows under that bridge. Someone who moved like danger and spoke like command. And standing beside him was a dog that looked like it could tear through steel. Tyler's voice trembled. "Dad, I don't think it's under control at all." Rain softened to a thin mist by late afternoon, dusting Harbor's End in a gray, metallic haze. Jack Mercer sat beneath the overpass, knees drawn to his chest, blanket wrapped around him. His coffee had gone cold. His fingers were numb. His heartbeat still hadn't settled since seeing the black sedan that morning. Something was coming. Something he had no strength left to outrun. Cars thundered overhead like distant artillery. each vibration jarring his nerves. He pressed his palms to his temples. The panic crept up again, unwelcome, suffocating. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Martinez's voice. "They saw me, Jack. They know." That was the last conversation they ever had. Jack had tried to warn him to leave town. Martinez didn't listen. And now, Jack exhaled shakily. Now he was the last witness. And men like Ward did not leave loose ends. As twilight settled over the valley, Harbor's End transformed. Streetlights flickered awake, bathing the sidewalks in pale amber. Storefronts closed one by one. The diner switched its neon from open to takeout only. Conversations dwindled to murmurs. Doors locked. The town always grew quiet at this hour. Not peaceful quiet, a quiet born from fear. Jack curled deeper into the blanket, fighting another tremor. He'd learned to decode silence. Silence meant opportunity. Silence meant the wolves came out to play. He heard footsteps before he saw them. 3 sets. Fast, uneven, approaching the overpass from the trail behind the lumberyard. Jack tensed. Teenagers. Their voices drifted toward him. Rough, nervous, adrenaline-laced. "You sure he stays under here?" "Dad said this is where he sleeps. Same spot every night." "Why do we gotta do this? Can't we just scare him off?" A slap. "Ward said make it permanent. You want to piss him off?" "Didn't think so." Jack's blood ran cold. Ward. He'd been right. His hands shook violently now, not from PTSD, but from pure, immediate danger. He backed up against the pillar, gripping the blanket like a shield. 3 boys appeared at the slope's edge: Tyler, Mason, and the youngest, Cole. Hoods up, hands buried in pockets that didn't hide their trembling. Tyler spotted him first. "There he is," he muttered. "Told you he'd be here." Jack's throat constricted. "What do you want?" he rasped. I don't have money. I don't want trouble." Mason laughed, high and nervous. "Good news. We're not here for your money." Cole stepped forward, lifting the red gasoline jug he'd been dragging behind him. Jack froze. Cold panic flooded his chest. His breath caught, his vision blurred. "No," Jack whispered. "Not again. Not fire. Please, anything but fire." Tyler swallowed hard. "Just don't run, old man. Dad said you saw something you weren't supposed to." "I didn't," Jack begged, hands raised. "I didn't tell anyone. I swear on my life. I don't even know what I saw." "Doesn't matter," Mason snapped. "You were there. That's enough." Cole hesitated. He was 16 at most, baby-faced, freckles, eyes wide like he didn't belong here. I don't want to do this," he whispered. Tyler grabbed his jacket. "He saw our dad dumping a body, Cole. You think Ward's gonna let that slide?" Cole's face drained of color. Jack shook his head violently. "I didn't see anything clearly. The fog. I wasn't sure." Tyler's voice cracked, raw with resentment and fear. "Doesn't matter what you think. Dad said you're a threat." He nodded at the gasoline. Cole unscrewed the cap with shaking hands. Jack stumbled backward, tripping over his mattress, falling hard onto the wet concrete. "No, don't, please, I'm begging." But the first splash hit his jacket. The cold sting of gasoline soaked through instantly. His breath caught, panic exploding inside him like a bomb. "No, no, please, stop!" He scrambled backward, slipping, choking on fear. "I fought for this country. Don't do this. Don't. Cole's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he poured. The gasoline rained down over Jack's chest, arms, hair, filling his nose with chemical fumes that triggered every buried memory of burning vehicles, explosions, screaming soldiers trapped under fire. The world spun. He was back in the desert, the Humvee burning, Martinez inside, Jack trapped under debris, helpless, choking on smoke. "No," Jack whimpered. "Not again. Not again." Tyler lit the lighter. Jack froze. His heart slammed so hard it hurt. "Please," he whispered. "I didn't tell anyone. Please. I don't want to die." Tyler's voice cracked. "This isn't personal." Then he dropped the flame. Everything exploded. Fire leapt upward with a violent roar, swallowing Jack in an instant. The heat hit him like a physical blow. He screamed. A hoarse, guttural sound ripped from his lungs. His arms flailed uselessly, trying to smother flames that only grew hungrier. "Help!" he screamed, rolling on the ground. "Please, help!" The boys staggered backward, horror dawning too late. "Oh my God. What did we do?" "He's burning. Tyler, he's..." Jack's screams filled the overpass. Flames crawled up his jacket. His beard singed. His skin blistered. He clawed at concrete, trying to smother the fire. "Please," he howled. "Someone, anyone, help me." The boys panicked, turning to run. Then the growl came. Deep, thunderous. A warning from hell. Titan stepped out of the shadows. A massive, muscled silhouette. Eyes glowing amber. Teeth bared. Every inch of him radiating lethal promise. He wasn't barking. He didn't need to. He was a soldier. A guardian. A weapon forged in discipline and loyalty. The boys froze. "What is that?" "Whose dog?" "Run! Run!" But Titan wasn't alone. Boots pounded into the underpass, splashing through puddles. A figure emerged from the darkness. Broad-shouldered, moving with purpose. A silhouette carved from steel. Reid, his voice cut through the chaos, calm as a battlefield commander. "Titan, secure perimeter." Titan moved instantly, hurting the boys, cutting off escape, forcing them backward with precision that only military training could produce. Reid threw off his jacket and dropped to Jack's side. "Stay with me, buddy," he murmured, smothering the flames with practiced, brutal movements. "Breathe. I got you, I got you." Jack sobbed, gasping for air. "Reid?" He choked, barely recognizing the face above him through the smoke. Reid's jaw clenched. "Yeah," he whispered. "It's me." Titan snarled, pushing the boys back as they scrambled helplessly. Reid glared at them, eyes burning with contained fury. "You have 10 seconds, he growled, to explain why you tried to murder a U.S. veteran. The boys stammered uselessly. Behind them, distant sirens finally wailed through the storm. But for these boys, for Ward, for Harbor's End, it was already too late. This was the night everything changed, and it started with fire. Rain hammered the highway above them as Reid pulled Jack upright, sliding his arm around the veteran's shoulders. The fire was out, but its damage still clung to Jack like the smell of fear and gasoline. Jack coughed hard, body spasming. Reid steadied him. "You're all right," Reid whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now." Jack blinked through the haze of pain. "Reid, I thought. You were still overseas." "I was," Reid said, jaw tightening. "Until last week." He didn't elaborate. This wasn't the time. Behind them, Titan held his position like a statue carved from muscle and discipline. The K-9's body formed a solid wall between the boys and the wounded veteran. His ears were pinned forward, every fiber locked in readiness. Reid looked over his shoulder. "Titan, status." The dog emitted a low rumble, not a bark, not a whine. A report. Targets contained. Perimeter secure. Threat non-lethal. Reid turned fully toward the boys now. 3 kids, soaked, terrified, shaking. Tyler clutched his sweatshirt with white knuckles, the lighter still in his hand. Mason stared at Titan as though the dog were death incarnate. Cole's lips trembled with silent sobs. Gasoline still splattered across his jeans. They weren't hardened criminals. They were manipulated, used, weaponized. Reid had seen this before, in other countries, in other wars. Young men turned into tools by someone who wanted the blood spilled, but never wanted it on their own hands. Reid's eyes narrowed. "Drop the lighter," he ordered. Tyler flinched. Now, the lighter hit the ground with a metallic clatter. "Step away from it." All 3 boys stumbled backward, eager to comply. Titan advanced a step, shoulder muscles rippling. His gaze never broke from Tyler, not even for a blink. The message was unmistakable. Move wrong, and you won't like what happens next. Reid settled Jack gently against a concrete pillar, knees bending beside him. "Let me see." Jack winced as Reid inspected the burns. He wasn't a medic, but he'd seen more battlefield injuries than most surgeons. "Second degree on the arms," Reid murmured. "First degree on the chest. You're lucky that jacket was thick." Jack let out a low, broken breath. "Lucky isn't what I'd call it." Reid squeezed his shoulder. "You're alive. That's what matters." He stood, turning back to the boys. "Do you realize what you just did?" Reid asked quietly. No shouting, no theatrics, just steel wrapped in calm. Tyler stepped forward, shaking visibly. We didn't mean for it to go that far." Reid's glare cut him off. "You poured fuel on a man and lit him on fire." "It was—" "Say that again," Reid snapped. "Out loud." Tyler swallowed. "We lit him on fire." Reid's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "That's attempted murder on a veteran, my teammate." Cole's breath hitched. "Teammate?" Reid looked back at Jack, broken, burned, trembling, then returned his gaze to the boys. "We served together. He saved my life 5 years ago in Kabul. I owe him more than you can comprehend." The rain intensified, thundering down like the sky itself was listening. Reid stepped closer, boots splashing through the puddles. "You think this is a joke? A prank? Something your father told you to do and you didn't question?" Tyler paled. "How did you—" "You have his eyes," Reid said coldly. Tyler lowered his head. "Why?" Reid demanded. "Why target Jack?" Mason stuttered. "He saw something he wasn't supposed to." "What something?" "We don't know," Mason cried. "We swear. Ward just said the vet he was a witness. And witnesses, they disappear." Reid's heart clenched. The rumors he'd heard after he returned from duty. The whispers about Harbor's End, the missing men, the accidents. It all pointed to one thing. Councilman Ward. Powerful, untouchable, rotten to the core. Reid spoke softly. "You boys were used." The boys flinched. "You're not killers," Reid continued. "Not yet. But he's turning you into them." Tyler shook his head violently. "That's not true. Dad wouldn't—" Reid grabbed his collar and slammed him against the concrete pillar, Titan instantly shifting position beside him. Ready, waiting for the next command. The move was fast, precise, controlled. No wasted motion, no unnecessary violence, just intent. Tyler gasped as Reid leaned in close enough for their foreheads to almost touch. "Your father sent you to murder a man today," Reid growled. "If Titan and I hadn't come when we did—" He pointed at Jack. "He'd be dead, and you'd be criminals for life." Tyler's breathing turned ragged. Reid released him. The boy fell to his knees in the cold water. "You said he's a witness," Reid demanded. "Witness to what?" Tyler wiped his nose, sobbing. A body." Reid froze. "Whose?" I don't know. Dad and some guys. They were by the river last week. Me and Mason were in the car. Dad said we weren't supposed to watch." "What did Jack see?" "We don't know," Tyler cried. "We didn't mean to. He wasn't supposed to be there. Dad just—" "Just what?" Tyler whispered the words like a confession in a church. "Dad said to get rid of him." Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Reid finally exhaled, the weight of the revelation settling like a war zone on his shoulders. This wasn't random. This wasn't an isolated crime. This was a system. A machine run by Ward, fueled by fear. Fed by boys who didn't know they were being shaped into weapons. Reid looked at Titan. The canine's ears were pricked, his gaze locked on the boys, muscles twitching with restrained aggression. Waiting. Ready. "Titan," Reid ordered quietly. "Stand down." The dog stepped back half a pace, but his eyes never softened. Police sirens wailed closer now. Reid straightened. "You three are coming with me," he said. "You'll tell the truth. Every detail. Every order he gave you." Tyler's face drained of color. No, you don't understand. If Dad finds out we talked—" Reid cut him off with a cold glare. "He'll find out," Reid said. "I'll make sure of it." The sirens grew louder. Mason panicked. "We can't. Dad will kill us." Reid spoke firmly. "No, he won't." "Why?" Cole blurted. "Because you'll stop him." Reid shook his head. "Because Titan will." The K9 stepped forward, growl vibrating through the concrete. The boys swallowed hard. Reid knelt between them, voice low and lethal. If Ward wants a war. He glanced at Titan. He just found the wrong soldier to pick one with. Red and blue lights flashed against the overpass walls as a police cruiser skidded to a stop at the base of the slope. Sheriff Kelso got out. Reid's eyes narrowed. Of all people, Kelso was the last man he wanted here. Kelso froze when he saw the scene. 3 boys soaking wet, 1 lighter on the ground, a gasoline jug, a burned veteran being helped to his feet by Reid, and a war dog standing guard like a sentinel forged from hellfire. Kelso forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, folks. We got a call about a disturbance." Reid stepped forward. "Saves me a call," he said. "We've got evidence of attempted murder." Kelso's smile twitched. He glanced subtly at Tyler. Reid noticed. Ward and Kelso. Of course they were connected. "I'll handle the boys," Kelso said, stepping forward. Titan growled, low and warning. Kelso froze. "Easy now," he muttered. "Call off your mutt." Reid's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "He's not a mutt. He's a United States military K-9, and he outranks you." Kelso stiffened. Reid pointed at the boys. "These kids tried to burn a veteran alive. You will arrest them." Kelso hesitated. Reid stepped closer, eyes cold. "And if your report even slightly deviates from the truth." Titan's growl deepened. "I'll make sure the feds hear everything Jack saw at the river last week." Kelso's face drained. You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes," Reid said quietly. "I do." Kelso swallowed. He was trapped. By Titan, by Reid, by guilt, and he knew it. "Fine," Kelso muttered, pulling out cuffs. "Boys, you're coming with me." Tyler's voice shook. "Dad's gonna kill us." Kelso didn't answer. Reid placed a steadying hand on Jack's shoulder. "We're going to the hospital," Reid said gently. "You're not alone anymore." Jack leaned heavily against him. The boys were loaded into the cruiser. The sirens wailed again, and the corruption of Harbor's End trembled for the first time. Because this was no longer a quiet town hiding its sins. This was war, and Reid, with Titan at his side, was just getting started. The hospital, shadows behind every door. St. Mary's Clinic was small, too small for the kind of injuries Jack carried. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows along the hallway walls. Reid paced the waiting room like a caged animal. Titan sat beside him, posture perfect, eyes locked on every sound, every movement. Jack was inside being treated. Burns, smoke inhalation, shock. Reid clenched his jaw. "How the hell," he muttered, "does a town let this happen?" Titan's ear twitched. A soft, alert sound. Just a small huff of breath. Someone was coming. Reid turned. A nurse approached cautiously. "Mr. Hale, your dog needs to stay seated, please. The staff is a little nervous." Reid gave Titan a hand signal. The dog froze in place like a stone sentinel. "He won't move," Reid said. "You have nothing to worry about." She swallowed. "Your friend is stable. 2nd-degree burns, mostly. He's dehydrated, severely undernourished, and exhausted." Reid closed his eyes. Jack had always been thin, but this was different. This was neglect, isolation, pain with no witness. "What was he doing living under that overpass?" Reid asked. "He used to be one of the best soldiers I ever worked with." The nurse hesitated. "You didn't hear it from me." She glanced around. "But most of the homeless in Harbor's End disappear." Reid stiffened. "Disappear?" She nodded. "Yeah, a few weeks ago, a man named Stephen Kaler. They found him dead in the river, drowned. Before that, Henry Mortensen. First it was sleeping rough, then gone. People say accidents, but 3 men, same profile, same pattern." Her eyes hardened. "That's not coincidence." Reid felt a cold, familiar weight settle in his stomach. The weight of truth starting to surface. Titan raised his head, alert again. Someone was coming. Someone important. The boys tried to recant. Sheriff Kelso walked into the clinic, jaw stiff, face pale. He spotted Reid instantly. "There you are," Kelso said tightly. "I've spoken to the boys." Reid's silence was louder than words. Kelso rubbed the back of his neck. They, changed their story. Reid laughed, dark, humorless. Of course they did. Ward spoke to them, didn't he? Councilman Ward is a respected— Finish that sentence, Reid snapped. I dare you. Kelso swallowed. They're saying it was an accident, he muttered. Horseplay gone wrong. Reid stepped forward. Titan rose in perfect sync. They poured gasoline on a man, Reid said quietly. They cornered him. They lit him on fire. That's not horseplay. Kelso looked down. I'm just telling you what they said. No, Reid said coldly. You're telling me what Ward wants them to say. Kelso's eyes flicked up in fear. Reid saw it. Ward controlled him, owned him, terrified him. Just like everyone else in this cursed town. Reid lowered his voice. You going to arrest the boys? Kelso froze. They're minors, he said weakly. And Tyler is Ward's son, Reid finished. Kelso didn't deny it. Get out of my sight, Reid said quietly. Kelso turned and walked away fast, like a man escaping a burning building. Titan finds something. When they left the clinic, Reid didn't return to his truck. He walked. Titan trotted at his side. Rain soaked the street. Shops were closing. People stared through windows, whispering. Fear lived here. It clung to their eyes like fog. Reid led Titan to the river walkway, the same river where other homeless men had disappeared. Titan suddenly halted. A soft growl. His nose went low, then lower, then locked on something. What is it, boy? Titan followed the scent trail to a boarded-up maintenance door near the river. He pawed lightly, then looked at Reid. Alert, focused, purposeful. Reid crouched. Shining his flashlight, he saw scrape marks, the kind left by boots being dragged, and something else. Blood, washed thin by rain, but not gone. Reid swallowed. This is where they brought the others, he whispered. Titan growled again, short, sharp. There was someone nearby. Reid's hand dropped to his concealed knife. Stay close. They moved along the riverbank, Titan leading the way. 10 seconds later, they saw a makeshift shanty, a cluster of tarps lashed to driftwood and rebar. Someone was living there. Reid approached cautiously. Hello? He parted the tarp. A man stared up at him, filthy, gaunt, shaking. Titan instantly stiffened, then softened. He sensed no threat. The man whispered, You shouldn't be here. They're watching. Who's watching? Reid asked. The man's eyes darted toward the water. They killed Stephen and Henry and Dale. They'll kill the old soldier too. Ward's men, they come at night. Reid knelt. Did Jack see something? The man swallowed. He saw them dump a body. Ward's men, they saw him. They chased him for days. They tried to burn me too. The man pulled back his sleeve. A burn scar, old, painful, familiar. Reid felt fury rise like a storm. This wasn't kids acting alone. This wasn't about a witness. This was systematic cleanup. Why target homeless veterans? Reid asked. The man's voice cracked. They're easy. No family. No one to ask questions. Reid clenched his fists. Do you know who in Ward's group is doing the killing? The man nodded. Tough guys. Hitmen. They work out of that old warehouse on Carter Street. Doing what? The man whispered, whatever Ward tells them to, cleaning up whoever gets in the way of his youth program. Reid froze. What youth program? The man looked at him, eyes wide with fear and truth. The program where he turns boys into killers. Titan's ears snapped upright. Reid's heartbeat slowed. Cold, sharp, centering itself like a sniper's scope. Their initiation test, the man whispered. Kill someone who won't be missed. Reid felt something in his chest lock into place. Ward wasn't just eliminating threats. He was building a private army of impressionable teens. Boys too scared to refuse, too brainwashed to question. A murder-for-hire ring disguised as youth outreach. And Jack? Jack had wandered into the wrong night, at the wrong place, and had seen the wrong men, dumping the wrong body. Ward wanted him dead to tie up a loose end. Reid exhaled slowly. This was no longer a rescue. This was no longer a defense mission. This was an operation. Titan sensed Reid's decision before Reid even moved. The dog's spine straightened. His posture shifted. Ready. Good boy, Reid whispered. We're ending this. A conflicted ally emerges. When Reid stepped out of the tarp shelter, someone stood waiting. Grace Langford, Ward's assistant. The last person Reid expected to see in this part of town, much less alone. Raindrops collected on her blazer, her hair plastered to her forehead. Titan growled low, uncertain. Grace raised her hand slowly. I'm not here to hurt you, she said. Wrong place, wrong time for innocence, Reid replied. Grace swallowed. I came because I knew you wouldn't give up, and because I don't want anyone else to die. Reid's eyes narrowed. You work for Ward. Her voice cracked. Yes, and I regret it every day. Why come to me? Because Ward's going to strike back, tonight. Reid stiffened. How do you know? Because he called a meeting at the warehouse, the same warehouse those boys mentioned. He sounded angry. Reid stepped closer. What's he planning? Grace hesitated, then whispered the truth. He's ordering Kelso to make evidence disappear, including Jack. Titan growled, deep, furious. Reid's blood turned to fire. Grace stepped closer. If you go there, you'll need evidence. Real evidence. Documents, audio. Proof of the whole operation. Reid's pulse slowed, calculating. Grace continued. I can get you his files. Reid studied her face. Fear, but also guilt. And something else. Resolve. You're switching sides, Reid asked. Grace swallowed. No, I'm picking the right one. Titan stepped between them, sniffing her hand, testing, evaluating. Then Titan sat, accepting her. Reid nodded once. Then we end this. Final moment of the chapter. A war begins tonight. Grace looked back toward town. You don't understand how dangerous Ward is, she whispered. He has judges, deputies, business owners. Half the town is under his thumb. Reid's voice hardened. Then we break his hand. Grace shook her head. This won't be easy. Reid looked down at Titan. Titan met his gaze with steady, fearless loyalty. It never is, Reid said. But we're not alone anymore. Grace looked between them, fear etched across her face. Ward will expect you tonight. He'll have men, guns, maybe more. Reid nodded. Good. Titan let out a low growl, agreement. Grace took one breath, then said the sentence that would define everything to come. Reid, if you walk into that warehouse, you won't be fighting corruption. Reid raised an eyebrow. You'll be fighting assassins. Reid didn't blink. Then they're not ready for Titan. Titan stood tall, rain dripping off his muzzle, eyes burning like twin embers, and the chapter ended with Reid whispering. Tonight, Harbor's End fights back. The warehouse awakens. The warehouse on Carter Street had been abandoned for 20 years, or so the town believed. But tonight, its windows glowed with dim yellow light. Men moved inside, shadows pacing, preparing. Grace stood with Reid and Titan behind an abandoned scrapyard across the street, her breath trembling in the cold night air. They're already assembling, she whispered. Ward's men, his hitters, the ones who make people disappear. Reid studied the building carefully. Movement on the catwalks, 2 men guarding the side door, lights in the office upstairs, and one thing he didn't like, a van, unmarked, running engine. Extraction team, Reid muttered. They're moving evidence, or bodies. Titan huffed quietly, nose twitching. He smelled gun oil, sweat, tension, danger, all the ingredients of death. Reid lowered his binoculars. Grace, you said Ward called a meeting. She nodded. That's right. He told the men, tonight we clean the slate. Reid breathed slowly. And what does that mean to him? Grace's voice broke once. It means he ties off every loose end. Titan growled softly, agreeing. Loose ends, Jack. The boys. The homeless who witnessed things. Reid himself. Ward wanted them all gone by morning. The threat arrives. Grace's phone buzzed. Caller ID, Ward. She froze. Reid motioned for Titan to stay low. Answer, Reid whispered. Speaker. Grace obeyed, hands shaking. Hello, sir. Ward's voice oozed through the line. Smooth, controlled, serpentine. Grace, where are you? At home, she lied instantly. Reid mouthed, steady. Ward responded calmly. No, you're not. Grace's eyes widened. Reid stiffened. Titan's growl deepened to an ominous rumble. Ward continued. I know where you are. I know who you're with. And I know what you're doing. Reid mouthed, let him talk. Grace swallowed. Sir, Ward's tone sharpened like a blade. You disappoint me, after everything I've given you. Grace's voice quivered. I didn't mean… Yes, Ward said. You did. There was a pause, too quiet, too long. Then Ward spoke with absolute chilling certainty. And now both of you will burn with the others. The line went dead. Titan stood instantly, ears vertical, body taut. Something was coming. Reid whispered, move. Ambush at the scrapyard. A metallic clink. Then another. Reid recognized the sound instantly. Grenades. He didn't think. He reacted. Titan, cover! Titan lunged forward, slamming into Grace, knocking her flat as Reid dove behind a rusted truck frame. 2 small canisters rolled across the dirt. Not fragmentation grenades. Worse for a small space. Incendiary flash grenades. They detonated. A blinding white fireball exploded outward, heat blasting through the scrapyard. Reid shielded his face. Titan curled around Grace's body, protecting her completely with his own. Shrapnel rained. Metal screamed. Sparks ignited dry leaves. Reid rolled and sprinted as voices yelled. On the left. He couldn't have gone far. Ward said, kill the dog too. Titan's ears twitched. Dog, the insult. He snarled, deep, primal. Reid signaled with his hand. Flank left. Titan vanished into the shadows between the wrecked cars, silent as fog. 3 hitmen split up behind stacks of scrap metal, guns drawn. These weren't amateurs. They moved with precision, communicated with hand signs, held formation. Ward hadn't hired thugs. He'd hired professionals. Reid ducked behind a rusted engine block. He whispered, Titan, engage. Titan's first heroic moment. The first attacker crept along the oil-stained gravel, finger on the trigger. Titan watched him silently from beneath a shattered car frame. His muscles rippled, waiting for the perfect now. Reid's whisper was enough. Titan launched like a bolt of lightning. 100 pounds of trained fury slammed into the attacker, knocking him backward. The man fired instinctively, but Titan twisted midair, teeth clamping down on the gun hand. The pistol slid across the ground. The man screamed. Titan pinned him, a low, controlled growl vibrating through the night. Not killing, subduing. Reid rushed in, knocking the man out with the butt of his knife. Good boy, he whispered. Titan looked up, eyes blazing with disciplined intensity. 1 down, 2 to go. Betrayal in the dark. Reid advanced toward the far end of the scrapyard, slipping between heaps of rusted metal. Titan shadowed him, stepping exactly where Reid stepped. Grace moved behind them, terrified but determined. Wait, she whispered suddenly. Reid, look! A flashlight beam scanned the yard. Sheriff Kelso, alone, gun drawn. He approached cautiously. Reid, he called. You here? Titan tensed, sniffing the air. Reid frowned. Sheriff, what are you doing here? Kelso stepped closer. Trying to help. Ward's lost it. He's burning the town to the ground. Titan growled, deep and distrustful. Reid raised a hand to steady Titan. Kelso kept walking. No tricks, Kelso said. Look, he held up something. A folder. Thick, water-stained, but filled with documents. Ward's files, Reid asked. Kelso nodded. Everything I could copy before his men caught on. Evidence you can use. Titan's growl deepened. Reid noticed. Kelso's heartbeat was too slow, too calm, too steady. Reid's instincts screamed, something's wrong. Kelso stepped closer. Take it, he whispered. Reid reached out. Titan roared. Not a growl, not a bark. A full military alert roar, the one he only used when someone was holding a hidden weapon. Reid froze. Kelso froze. Reid's voice became ice. What's in your other hand, Sheriff? Kelso's eyes narrowed. Then he smirked. You almost fell for it. He swung his left hand forward. A gun, silenced, aimed at Reid's chest. Titan launched. He crashed into Reid, knocking him sideways just as Kelso fired. The bullet sliced across Reid's shoulder instead of his heart. Reid hit the ground hard. Titan spun around, snarling murder. Kelso stumbled back in terror. Ward said, "Kill the soldier first," Kelso screamed. "The dog too. Take them both." But he didn't finish. Titan lunged. Kelso fired wildly. Bullets pinged against metal. Titan zigzagged, closing in. Reid yelled, "Titan, take him." Titan hit Kelso like a wrecking ball, smashing him into a pile of scrap metal. Kelso dropped the gun and screamed as Titan pinned him, teeth bared inches from his throat. Reid stood, blood dripping from his shoulder. "You picked the wrong side, Sheriff." Kelso trembled. "You won't make it out alive. He has more men. He has." Reid nodded. "Oh, I'm counting on it." He looked at Titan. "Stand down, boy." Titan backed off, but his glare never left Kelso. Reid tied the sheriff's hands behind his back with a zip tie he kept on his belt. Ward had tried to assassinate Reid. Now Reid had the sheriff. The war had escalated. The files reveal a monster. Reid opened the folder Kelso dropped. Inside, photos of bodies along the river, bank transfers to shell companies, a list titled Youth Program Potential Recruits, a second list titled Expendable Targets, and the worst, a page with 3 names circled: Jack Sullivan, Stephen Kaler, Henry Mortensen, all veterans, all homeless, all marked to be removed. Grace covered her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He's been doing this for years." Reid closed the folder. "Not anymore." Titan exhaled, low but firm. Agreement. Ward's men close in. Gunshots cracked from the street. Voices shouted, "Find them." They were seen heading this way. Ward wants them alive long enough to talk, then dead. Reid grabbed Grace's arm. "Move, now." Titan took point, ears sharp, body low, nose following danger. They sprinted through the scrapyard toward the far fence. A spotlight swung overhead. A bullet hit the metal beside Reid's face, sparks exploding. Another hit the ground near Titan's paw. Reid dove behind an overturned truck. "Grace, stay down." Titan pressed against Reid's leg, trembling with controlled fury, waiting for the command. Reid peeked out. 4 men approaching, not teens, killers. He whispered, "Titan, ready?" Titan crouched. Takedown. Titan bolted forward, a silent missile of muscle and precision. He hit the first man before the others even realized they were under attack. The gun fell. The man fell harder. Reid sprinted after Titan, grabbed the weapon mid-air, and fired at the second attacker, dropping him instantly. The third man turned, too late. Titan was already on him. Reid grabbed the last one, slammed him against a steel beam, and growled, "Tell Ward I'm coming." The man's eyes widened. Titan snarled inches from his face. Reid knocked him out cold. Reid's wound forces a choice. When the last gunman dropped, Reid staggered, blood seeping from his shoulder heavily now. Grace gasped. "You're hit." "Through and through," Reid grunted. "I'll live." Titan nudged Reid urgently, worried. Reid knelt, pressing his forehead gently against Titan's for a moment. "I'm okay, boy. Not done yet." Grace stared at them, astonished. "You two. You move like one creature." Reid whispered, "We are." He stood slowly. "Grace, we're leaving. With the files. With Kelso. And with the truth." Grace hesitated. "But Ward, he'll be waiting at the warehouse." Reid looked toward the glowing structure in the distance, where dark figures moved along the windows. "I know. So what do we do?" Reid answered simply. "We end it tonight." Titan barked once, sharp, ready, fearless. A warrior responding to the call. Reid tightened his grip on the folder. Ward wants a war. He looked toward the warehouse. He's about to get one. The warehouse, a machine of violence. The warehouse loomed before them, massive, rusted, breathing with a dull industrial hum. Windows glowed dimly. Shadows moved behind them. Inside, killers. Ward's private death squad. Reid crouched behind an abandoned forklift across the street. Titan pressed tightly beside him. Grace knelt behind, shaking. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. Reid scanned the rooftop. Ward gathered everyone here: hitmen, enforcers, cleaners. This is the only chance to take them all down. Titan's ears twitched. He smelled gun oil, adrenaline, sweat, electric fear. Reid exhaled slowly. He wasn't nervous. Not anymore. He was cold, focused, in mission mode. "Grace," Reid said, "stay behind Titan and me. Never break formation. And if anything happens, run." Grace swallowed hard. "What about you?" Reid gave a faint, humorless smile. "I don't run." Titan low-barked, syncing with Reid's mindset. The operation began. Breaching the outer perimeter, Reid signaled Titan with a hand motion, silent, precise. "Scout." Titan slithered forward into the darkness, silent as mist, body low, head sharp. Grace watched with awe. "He doesn't make a sound." "Military K9s don't bark unless they choose to," Reid said. "Titan only speaks when it matters." Seconds later, Titan returned with a soft grunt. 2 enemies. Left side, armed, distracted. Reid nodded. "Good boy." He moved. Titan followed. Grace trailed behind. 2 guards stood under a flickering light by the side door. One smoked a cigarette. The other checked his phone. Amateurs. Reid whispered, "Titan, distract." Titan growled once, quiet but sharp. The guards looked up, confused. What the hell was that? Probably a stray dog. Titan stepped into the light. Not a stray, a monster made of discipline and fury. The guards flinched backward. "Whoa, easy boy." Too late. Titan lunged, not to kill, but to disable with terrifying efficiency. One guard's gun arm snapped sideways. The second was knocked flat on his back. Reid sprinted in, disarmed both men, and zip-tied them unconscious. Grace stared. He took them down in under 3 seconds. Reid tipped his head. That's slow for Titan. Titan snorted, humor and pride combined. Together, they entered the warehouse. Inside the den of wolves, the interior was a cathedral of steel and shadows. Catwalks lined the walls. Stacks of crates blocked sightlines. Overhead, chains swayed gently from the rafters like metal serpents. Men gathered in clusters, 6 on the ground level, 4 at the far end, 2 patrolling the upper walkway, and a group inside the manager's office. Reid recognized one instantly, Councilman Ward, standing at the window, framed in yellow light, smiling, watching. Grace gasped quietly. Ward lifted a glass of whiskey toward her, mocking. Reid felt Titan stiffen beside him. Ward spoke through a rooftop intercom. Well, the hero arrives." His voice echoed across the cavern. "And you brought the mutt." Titan's growl rumbled like thunder. Reid whispered, "That's right, boy. Let him talk." Ward laughed. "You're outnumbered, Reid. Outgunned. And frankly," he gestured, "I'm tired of homeless pests and moral heroes ruining my town." Reid said nothing. Ward smirked. "Men, kill them." Guns lifted. Killers advanced. Reid whispered one word. "Titan, go!" Titan spotlight. Moment number 1, the catwalk ambush. Titan bolted upward, launching himself off a crate and leaping onto the catwalk like a missile made of muscle and teeth. One guard screamed as Titan crashed into him, knocking him over the railing. Another fired wildly, but Titan twisted midair, dodging each bullet like smoke. Reid sprinted forward below, using Titan's chaos as cover. Gunfire exploded above. Titan tackled the second guard, dragging the rifle away in a controlled takedown, then shoved the man unconscious with a brutal but non-lethal clamp of his jaws. Reid yelled up, "Nice work." Titan barked, short, sharp, proud. Grace whispered, "That dog, he's unreal." Reid smirked. "He's just warming up." Hitmen closed the trap. The lights in the warehouse snapped off. Darkness swallowed everything. Reid froze. Grace grabbed his arm. "Reid, stay behind me," he whispered. Titan growled, a low, rolling warning. The killers had NVG goggles. They could see in the dark. Reid felt the air change, the scent shift. Titan's muscles coil with violent readiness. Footsteps approached, slow, calculated, surrounding them. Then, flashlight beams exploded. 6 hitmen stood in a circle around them, guns raised. "Drop your weapon," one barked. Titan snarled. "No sudden moves." Reid said nothing. Grace trembled. One hitman kicked her to the ground. Reid's jaw clenched. Ward's voice echoed again. "Kneel, Reid, kneel, and I'll grant you a quicker death." Reid stood perfectly still. Then he whispered, "Titan." The dog's ears snapped back. "Lights." Titan bolted. Leaping into the center, he tore down an electrical panel with his jaws, sparks exploding, plunging the room into a second blackout. The hitmen panicked. Shots fired in every direction. Reid grabbed Grace, rolled behind a stack of crates, and whispered, "Now they're blind too." Titan reappeared from the dark, eyes glowing with predatory focus. The fight began. Operation Clean House. Reid moved like a ghost. Titan moved like a storm. Together, they dismantled Ward's killers with brutal precision. One hitman aimed blindly. Titan hit him low, knocking the shotgun away, pinning him with military accuracy. Another approached from behind. Reid countered with a perfect joint lock and slammed him into a crate. Grace crawled behind a forklift for cover, watching wide-eyed as the two operated with terrifying synchronicity. Reid shouted, "Titan, right!" Titan spun instantly, intercepting a knife-wielding attacker and sending him crashing into an oil drum. Reid launched himself into a sliding sweep, taking down another. Every gunshot, every shout, every clang of metal was countered by Titan's precision and Reid's cold focus. Within minutes, 5 men were down, 4 unconscious, 1 heavily wounded but alive, and 2 more fleeing upstairs. Reid glanced at Titan. "Upstairs?" Titan growled. "Affirmative." They advanced, saving Grace's life. They reached the stairs when a shot exploded through the metal, right at Grace. She screamed and ducked. A hitman with a scoped rifle perched on the upper platform took aim again. Titan launched faster than any human reflex. He slammed into Grace, knocking her flat just as the bullet sliced through the air where her head had been. Titan landed on top of her, shielding her body with his own. The rifleman cursed. "Damn it, kill the mutt!" He reloaded. Titan looked at Reid, seeking permission to eliminate. Reid nodded. "Take him." Titan sprinted up the stairs, zigzagging expertly to avoid gunfire. The rifleman panicked, stepping backward. Too late. Titan tackled him through a plywood barrier, pinning him with a furious snarl. The rifle clattered down. Grace sobbed. He saved my life. Reid helped her up. He does that. The office, Ward's last stand. Titan dragged the incapacitated rifleman aside and stood guard as Reid approached the upstairs office, the center of Ward's empire. Inside, Ward waited with 2 of his deadliest men. One held a combat knife, the other a suppressed pistol. Ward himself held a remote detonator. "Stop right there, Reid," Ward hissed. Reid paused. Grace stayed behind Titan, trembling. Ward gestured to the warehouse interior. "You see the structural beams. Half the girders are rigged, enough plastique to bring the entire building down." Reid's jaw tightened. Ward smirked. "You think you're the first man to come after me? I always leave myself an exit." Reid spoke softly. "Let the kids go, Ward. Let Jack go. Stop this." Ward laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Why would I stop? I own this town. I built this foundation on blood. People listen to me, fear me, need me." He held up the detonator. "And tonight, I erase the last loose ends." Reid lowered his stance. Titan bared his teeth. "You're not leaving this warehouse," Reid said quietly. Ward raised an eyebrow. "Who's going to stop me? You? That dog. You're outnumbered." Reid smirked. "You sure?" Ward blinked. Then, glass shattered below. Boots thundered through the front entrance. Voices yelled, "FBI, NCIS, stand down." Reid whispered, "You're surrounded, Ward." Ward's face crumpled into fury. He pointed the detonator at the floor. "If I die, everyone dies." Reid didn't blink. "Titan." Titan hurled forward. He smashed into Ward's arm just as Ward pressed the button. The detonator flew from his hand. One of Ward's hitmen lunged at Reid. Reid countered, slammed him into the desk, disarmed him instantly, and knocked him unconscious. Ward staggered backward, shocked, terrified, humiliated. Titan growled directly into Ward's face. Reid stepped forward. "It's over." Ward trembled. You can't prove anything." Reid tossed the folder of documents at his feet. "We already did." FBI agents swarmed the upstairs walkway. Ward fell to his knees, and Titan stood tall, victorious. The warehouse collapsed, almost. A voice shouted, "Stop! The charges! They're live!" Reid whipped around. One of Ward's men, barely conscious, had crawled to a secondary detonator on the floor. He hit the button. A deep rumble tore through the building. Beams groaned, lights flickered. Metal screamed. Grace screamed. Titan barked sharply, alert. Reid grabbed Grace's arm. "Move!" Agents scrambled. Titan led the way, navigating falling debris with supernatural instinct, weaving between crumbling beams. A steel support collapsed behind them. Titan shoved Reid forward just in time. Another explosion erupted. Reid shielded Grace. Titan shielded both. They burst through the exit just as the roof partially caved in behind them. The warehouse didn't fully collapse, but half of it did. Titan stood panting, chest heaving. Reid knelt beside him. "You okay, boy?" Titan pressed his forehead against Reid's chest. He was okay, alive, victorious, and the war was finally over. Morning after the firestorm, Harbor's End woke to a strange silence the next morning. Not fear, not dread, not the tension that had lingered for years, but something the town had forgotten how to feel. Relief. Smoke still rose faintly from the partially collapsed warehouse, now surrounded by federal agents, yellow tape, and teams of investigators documenting every scrap of evidence inside. For the first time in over a decade, the people of Harbor's End walked along the river without looking over their shoulder, because the monster who ruled their fear was gone. Ward had been arrested, his hitmen captured, his sheriff exposed, his youth program revealed to be a blood-soaked recruitment ring, and in the center of all of it, the man who ended it, and the dog who made it possible. Reid Hale and Titan, Jack's recovery. A brother returns. Jack lay in a clean hospital bed, sunlight pouring over him like a blessing. His arms were bandaged, his skin healing, oxygen tubing helping him breathe. But his eyes, blue, weary, full of trauma, had regained something lost. Recognition, safety, hope. Reid entered quietly. Titan padded beside him, tail wagging gently instead of rigid with combat alertness. Jack smirked weakly. "You, and that damn dog, always showing up right when I embarrass myself." Reid chuckled. "You were on fire, Jack. Literally. I think embarrassment was the least of your concerns." Jack laughed, then winced. "Ow, don't make me laugh, you jerk. It hurts." Titan approached the bedside, resting his head carefully against Jack's chest. Jack's voice softened. "Hey, buddy, missed you too." Reid pulled a chair closer. "How much do you remember?" Jack stared at the ceiling. "Enough. Too much. The river, the men, the body. Then running, hiding, knowing Ward's men were coming. I kept thinking Reid would know what to do." Reid swallowed, emotion thick in his throat. "You survived a hell I can barely imagine." Jack turned to him. "You saved me." Reid shook his head. "You saved me first, Cobble. You took that blast for me. I never forgot." Titan barked once, soft, acknowledging the bond. Reid placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You're not alone anymore. Harbor's End won't hurt you again." Jack blinked fast, tears gathering. Reid smiled gently. "You're coming with me. Titan insists." Titan barked twice. Jack chuckled through tears. "Guess I don't have a choice, huh?" "Nope," Reid said softly. "Not anymore." FBI press conference. The truth finally speaks. 2 days later, the town gathered outside the courthouse as FBI Director Hayes approached a podium. Beside him, Grace Langford, no longer trembling, now resolute. Reid, Titan, several rescued boys, and dozens of citizens once too afraid to speak. Director Hayes cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen of Harbor's End, today marks the end of a long reign of corruption." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Hayes continued. We have uncovered evidence of bribery, racketeering, murder for hire, conspiracy to commit homicide, manipulation of minors, falsified police records, and the systematic targeting of veterans. Gasps, tears, anger. But this town also showed extraordinary courage, Hayes said, and that courage began with 3 unlikely heroes. He turned toward Reid, a former Navy SEAL who refused to look away, then toward Titan, a military K-9 who performed with unmatched bravery. Titan sat tall, chest out, ears proud, and finally toward Grace, and a civilian who chose truth over fear. The crowd applauded, loud, fierce, grateful. Hayes continued. Thanks to them, the Ward Crime Organization has collapsed. Cheers erupted. Justice, Hayes said, has returned to Harbor's End. Titan barked once, perfect timing, which caused laughter and applause from everyone. The town rebuilds. The courthouse wasn't the only place healing bloomed. The riverfront sanctuary. Crews cleared the riverbank of Ward's debris. Benches replaced the old rusted barriers. A memorial plaque was installed. For the forgotten veterans, may they never be silenced again. Jack's name was among the honored survivors. When he saw it, he cried quietly. Reid put an arm around him. Titan placed his head on Jack's knee. Healing. The diner scene. The local diner hung a framed photo near the entrance. Titan sitting proudly beside Reid, labeled, "Our Guardian of Harbor's End. Free burgers for Titan for life." He accepted this perk with immense enthusiasm. Cleaning the youth program. The boys Ward manipulated were placed into new mentorship programs, led by veterans and community leaders. Mason approached Reid one afternoon, eyes lowered. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." Reid nodded. "You were scared. Now you're free. Make something good out of that freedom." Titan nudged Mason's hand gently. The boy smiled, the first genuine one in months. A decision for Grace. One evening, Grace found Reid by the lakeshore. "FBI offered me a job," she said quietly. "They want people who can help protect communities from corruption." Reid's eyes softened. "You'd be perfect." Grace looked down. "I wouldn't be here without you." Reid shook his head. "You'd be here because you chose the right thing when it mattered most." She smiled. "And you? What's next for Reid Hale?" Reid glanced at Titan, who was watching ducks with intense suspicion. "I go wherever Titan goes." Grace laughed softly. "I hope that's somewhere peaceful." Reid exhaled slowly. "For now, it is." On the hill above Harbor's End, the sun dipped behind the pines, painting the town gold. Reid, Jack, and Titan stood together on a hill overlooking Harbor's End, a place once haunted by shadows, now glowing with new light. Jack whispered, "Never thought I'd see this town safe again." Reid placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's safe because you survived, because you told the truth, because you fought." Jack looked down at Titan. "And because of you, big guy." Titan leaned into him, eyes gentle. Reid smiled. "You ready to leave this place behind?" Jack nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so." Reid reached down and scratched Titan's neck. "Titan, what do you say?" Titan barked once. Deep, certain, ready. Reid stood tall. "Then let's go find somewhere we're needed next." Titan trotted ahead, tail high, a silhouette against the orange sky. Harbor's End was safe. Justice had come. Wounds had begun to heal, and the legend of Reid Hale and Titan had only just begun. Harbor's End slept peacefully for the first time in years. The mountains standing guard like silent sentinels over a town finally free from fear. And in that quiet, in the golden hush of a community reborn, a deeper truth settled over everyone who had survived the storm. Evil thrives in silence, but justice begins the moment even one person stands up and says enough. Jack, forgotten, broken, overlooked, proved that even the weakest voice can expose the darkest lies. Grace, working inside the belly of corruption, showed that redemption is always possible when courage wins over fear. Reid, trained for war but yearning for peace, reminded us that the strongest warriors are those who fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And Titan, the four-legged guardian forged in loyalty, showed the world that bravery does not always roar. Sometimes it walks on paws and stands between danger and the innocent without hesitation. In the end, the collapse of Ward's empire wasn't just the fall of corruption. It was the rise of a community brave enough to heal. A town rediscovered its voice. A forgotten man rediscovered his worth. And a loyal K9 reminded everyone that heroes come in all forms. So let this story be a reminder. Humanity is not measured by wealth or power or titles, but by how fiercely we protect the vulnerable, how loudly we defend the truth, and how deeply we care for the forgotten. When we choose courage over comfort, when we choose integrity over silence, when we choose to stand for someone who has no strength left to stand for themselves, that is when light scatters the darkness. May we all learn to be protectors. May we all dare to speak when others fall quiet. And may we all find the Titan within us, the part that rises, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Stay brave, stay compassionate, and may justice always find its way home.